My name is Amália Souza. I am founder of Casa Socio-Environmental Fund based in Brazil, and we are co-founders of the Alianza Socioambiental Fondos del Sur, the Socio-Environmental Funds of the Global South. We set up this alliance at first with 9 funds from Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And we are now at 15 funds, all from the Global South. And the idea is to demonstrate that the Global South has strong and legitimate structures that can bring resources to communities that are protecting our planet's important biodiversity and climate. So that biodiversity means diversity of life. That is what keeps all humans and all beings alive. We have also the forests, or the big forests, and even other biomes like the oceans that are climate regulating biomes. And we are, as funds, located in the Global South, where these places are most abundant still, making sure that the communities that have kept those places intact are receiving adequate resources to continue and improve their work on behalf of all of us. And that's why the Socio-Environmental Funds exactly speaks to not just protecting forests and with the animals, but those who actually know how to protect those places. We set up systems that can resource them more adequately so that they can do that work better and thus benefit all of humanity with the privilege of continuing to live on this planet. Casa Fund, for a long time, was one of 4 similar funds. One was in Southeast Asia, the other was in Mexico, the other in Central America. All of us understand that if we don't put resources in the hands of local protectors of these major natural places on this planet, that nobody else was going to be able to do that, and we run the very serious risk of not having a planet. We thought, why don't we just take our model, everything we learned, all the relationships with funders, all of the contracts, all of the forms, everything we use, and we suggest that other activists in other countries, we were first thinking of South America because we're neighboring countries with cross-border biomes. Why don't you just set it up there? We give you everything we know and we'll bring you, to the communities and the spaces of funders. And our countries agreed, in Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador, and they began to set it up. We were there holding their backs, making sure all of the questions, all doubts, how do you speak with the funder? How do you propose? Everything we had already been doing, and it's working so well, they started using it. And then a lawyer, environmental lawyer from Mozambique, who was also looking for a model to set up a fund there. And each system is adapted to their reality, their culture, their contacts, their policies, etc. So it's not that they're copying. It's completely independent. So when we came together, we were able to create the alliance. And luckily, we were able to grow quite soon after that because other funds found out about us or we found out about them. We talked to them. So right now we are 15 funds and we fund in 50 countries. This is a movement that is going to grow pretty fast. I think the very nature of us coming from our movement and understanding the need to put resources in the hands of communities automatically makes us want to collaborate. We don't come from the big money. We don't come from narrow vision. We don't fund one human cause or another human cause or things that are only related to humans. We actually fund humans who are protecting a whole planet in many different ways, from the African descendants all across South America, from indigenous peoples, riverine communities, everything. We fund all humans who are working together towards the protection of life. And automatically, this makes us collaborate. We have the same vision, and we have already realized with this 6 years experience of Casa Fund helping to set up these other 5 funds around South America and one in Africa, there was no competition. How funders understood, they didn't stop funding us, but they began funding them because we were covering more ground. I think the biggest problem usually of this competition in funders is that they have stuck to a narrow vision of what conservation for this planet needs. You bring a lot of resources to a handful of very large organizations that have been promising, for example, to save the Amazon, right? It's been maybe 30 years that conservation funders were funding, usually not involving the communities of these places, but just pure conservation. But if you look at the Amazon, it's in worse shape now than it's ever been, which probably means if funders were considering that they lost a lot of money. On the contrary, some conservation funders understood a few years ago that without the social aspect, they weren't going to be successful. And of course, that's when they came to us because we were already set up to do that. So many of the older funds and now the new funds were already set up to help big funders, conservation funders, to reach the social aspect. We're being more successful on the whole because of that shift in strategy. There are many ways to work with the Alliance. The Alliance's mission isn't to raise money for the members, right? But that doesn't mean that the Alliance won't help to mobilize, and maybe it might have to hold and redistribute so the funders can come to the individual members and fund each of us individually. Or maybe you come to the Amazon region and you know that there are 5 funds operating. One of us can receive the money to share with all the other 4, and we work together to make those grants in the territory. We have funds inside the Alliance that can help either to receive one big grant if necessary, but if the funders prefer, they can go partner with different parts of the Alliance. So there's many ways that they can engage if they want. I think the Alliance is exactly the answer to the bigger questions that we're hearing from climate funders right now. They understand their money needs to reach local communities. We already have the structure, but because we are in the Global South and they're used to working with partners in the Global North, they end up going there first. And when you see that 15 members, 15 funds across Africa, Latin America, and Asia are covering 50 countries, 50. You can already see the impact. Communities are looking for solutions, and if we can help them build solutions faster to deal with the urgencies that we're living on this planet right now. And I'm telling activists in these places right now, if you want the causes that you care about to be funded, set up a fund. Nobody from the outside has your vision, your passion, your determination. People can care about the same things, of course. Now, we know that there are very nice foundations that really care, but they can't make those grants in the scale that we can from inside, most of all because those communities cannot handle international currencies. You need to reach them in local currencies, and for that you need a local structure. So you need to set up a fund, a local fund. A study came out last year by the Human Rights Funders Network called The Trust Gap, the troubling lack of direct, flexible funding for the Global South and East. I was in the steering committee of Human Rights Funders Network for 6 years, and I was part of an advisory group to do that study. They brought together thousands of indicators from different kinds of funders for what they collect from their members. There's a whole combination of access to funding data from different funders. And then analyzing it, they realized that 88% of the money that is supposed to be going to the Global South and East is given to Global North structures. It's as plain as that. That's only for human rights. I dare to say that for conservation funders, it's even worse because the habit of using very extremely large and few, right, international conservation NGOs is so great that it's even more difficult for them, although we don't have those specific numbers. It might be trust, it might be disinformation, it might be laziness. We would be really happy to introduce you, not just to our structure, but to a lot of other very competent structures in our countries and regions that you are not accessing, that are excellent, that could help your mission go much further. Dare to look through different eyes, just listen, just open up.